Well, hello and welcome back to lesson number 4. Now, last time we got together, you were looking at a soundtrack. Now, we were creating a dance track, so an EDM track, and we had to get started with a few things. So let me give you a quick little recap of what you should have. So first off, we needed to do an 8-bar loop. So if we look at the loops up top, these were the bar numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we want to get to the end of it. And that's how we loop. This thing here, if I highlight it, when it's light gray, it is not looping. When it is dark gray, it is looping. So if it is looping, that means it's going to play through. At the end of the 8 bars, boom, it restarts. If it is not looping, it's just going to continue on forever. All right, so we know what the 8-bar loop is. Inside the 8-bar loop, we did the first thing, which was creating a kick drum, which gave us just this sound here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We wanted that clean 1, 2, 3, 4, which we call 4 on the floor, which is just a very common dance sound. Next up, we needed to add a melody, something that we wanted to whistle or have stuck in our heads or whatever it is. And I suggested to do this by playing the synth, and then you hit the record button at the bottom here. So listening to my melody, we have this. And then loops, right? All right, so that's what you should have after the end of lesson 3. Again, at the bottom, this red button's your record button. That's your stop. Go back to beginning, play, go to the end, or keep going through like this. All right. And if you hit play, that turns into the pause button. Okay, so those are some of our functions. All right, jumping into lesson number 4. Next up, what we have in dance music that's very common are claps. Yes, you can record your clap if you want to with your audio off your mic, or you could go in the loops, which I found already here by typing in claps. So how I would do this, I would add a new track and I would look for a loop library if I am looking in the loops here, or I could hit voice and mic. I am just going to use this one here, and I went through them already, which you're going to have to do. There's only a few. Oh, oops. No, there's way more than a few. But here they were called Toast or something like that. Here we go. This is the one I chose. You can choose whatever you want. So what I do is I'm going to bring them in. Now the claps in EDM are going to be found on beats 2 and 4. All right. Typically, doesn't mean it has to, but I'm giving you the basic fundamentals of what EDM would have. 2, 3, 4. So now 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost somewhere in between. So I'm going to start off by muting. So right here is a mute button. The little headphone just means it's soloing that track. I'm only going to hear that track. So I'm not going to do that right now, but I just want to show you. But I'm going to mute my melody, and then I'm going to count my beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So it's not on. And as you can see over here, these sound waves is showing me where my claps are. So if I find where beat 2 is, 1, 2. So 1, 2 was over here. I want to line up. I could do this with my mouse or my mouse pad to expand or retract our sound waves here so we can see better. But I am looking for beat 2. And if I see this at the bottom left, I could change the track size by dragging it down. And here's beat 2. I'm going to put my clap right on beat 2, and let's see if that does anything. Oops, that was beat 3. So beat 2 is actually in between right here. So I'm going to bring it back here, beat 2, and let's see what happens here. 1. That was not beat 2 again. So you see what it's a long process, but that's how you have to go through it. That was on the end of 2. I push it over again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, Yeah. And I could add my melody back in. I moved it once I did that, so I'm just gonna bring it back. So that's how the process works. And you always have to listen back. So I tried to expand it by going down there, but it's not the way it works. So to expand the track, a couple ways I could highlight it. Typically, you would drag it from the bottom here. And that's what I tried to do. And then we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Perfect. And that's part number 1. Okay, next up, we have a few extra things here. So as you can see, I've added some cuts in my claps. And how I did this is basically you just go to edit and there's a split region. If you highlight your track and you want to bring your arrow, you could go over top, edit, split region, boom, and it slices your track in half. And now I could drag it back and forth, whatever I want to do. If I don't want to do that, just hit edit and undo whatever you did, and boom, there you go. So that's a quick little split regions if you need to know how to do that. Next up in our EDM, what we want to do is we want to add some hi-hats. All right, so hi-hats is that drum that's, and I've went in and did the same thing. I created a track, I added a loop just to skip all that step. Those steps, so then you could get to it. And I typed in hi-hats, I dragged it in, same as I did with everything else. And now I have this here. If I hit play at the bottom, all right, cool. So what happens here is that generally the hi-hat fits in between the kick drum. And now there's a whole bunch of fun, fancy stuff you could do with these. So if I highlight my hi-hat and I click on this icon here, it's going to bring some new settings, which again, I could change the sound, but now I could crank the bass, put more low or less low. I could crank some treble, which is the highs. Okay. Reverb is the how big the room becomes. Panning is left and right speaker, and then volume is how loud you're going to hear it. So you can play around with those to see what they do. But then there's also this fun thing here, add effect. Okay, so oh my goodness, these are all different effects. Something that's that we're going to try to do is we're going to check out what a compressor does. I like using dynamic one because it has more information, but I want you to play around with this to see what happens to the sound, okay? So the first thing you're going to play with is this here called a threshold, and let's see what happens. You see this little line right here? It's showing me how much it's pumping. So it's how much of it do I want the sound to come out. And then you can change that with the ratio. Now, if you get too high up, it's going to start cracking your speakers. So you want to control that and make sure it doesn't overload. Attack is the starting of the note. How quick do you want it to attack? Hear the difference? Or release is how long after the note has been played we want to hear it. I kind of like the attack higher on this one. Maybe that's a little too much, too trebly. But it's okay. So I want you to play around with this. And how much do we want the hi-hat compared to the kick drum? Because that's what's going to make us move. You can add just the natural compressor that does everything in one here. See what that does. All right. So today, your job is to, let me stop this. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, so let me stop this at the bottom. Okay, so your job today, as a full recap, lesson 3, you did the 4 on the floor and you did the melody, kick drum, melody. Today, you're doing hi-hats and you're doing the claps. And then I want you to start playing around with a compressor to see what the compressor does. All right, so let's do it on the hi-hats and see what happens. And that should be quite plenty for today. Awesome. I will see you soon.